It does such a good job of serving, I guess, so many different needs of its playing community, um, that studios, I think, kind of almost need to consider, do they have to do that to probably survive in the modern economy? But yeah, like there's very big pockets of the industry where it still doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I think we're starting to see a little bit of a change there. And maybe not, I say that, but I think about like games that are typically locked down, but you see Cyberpunk has some sort of DLC built into it. Again, Baldur's Gate, right? I feel like there might be genres that are off limits to DLC, but it doesn't seem like that's really the case anymore. It seems like even single player games are starting to embrace this a little more, and I think it's good because I think it's going to continue the engagement, continue players coming into to what you said earlier, right? Like players probably like to see what they create and see people using it, so they're going to keep coming back and they're going to keep coming back, and I think it gives these games such legs that they haven't had before, and they can keep them running for years and years. I mean, you mentioned at some point that over 2,000 mods have already been created for Baldur's Gate 3, and it's been out for a little over 2 months now at this point, right? Like, that's nuts. People must have been itching for this, waiting for this. I mean, this game's gonna be
Yeah,
relevant for years. It's seen player over player growth from last year to this year, and last year was the game of the year. So, I mean, I think this is an amazing thing you've created for the community. Obviously, the community is creating it for themselves as well, but I think you're helping enable that. And I think that's awesome.
yeah, I think I absolutely, it is really changing, and we see that firsthand. We have the benefit of seeing it. Um, and a lot of that, unfortunately, I can't share. But there's some amazing things. But the ones that are public, for example, is like we worked with Ubisoft for Anno for the 25th anniversary of that title, and I'm not sure that they've really done UGC in any game ever before. And they wanted to give something back to the community, and so we released it, and the reception on Reddit and elsewhere was just overwhelmingly positive. They're like, "Thank you, devs. This is incredible. Like this is one of the greatest features. It's never been so easy. Like it's amazing." And so that's that's a major AAA studio that has thought, we'd like to dive into UGC more. I mean, Andrew Wilson at EA has been talking on their investor calls for a while now the importance of creation within their future and things. So, there was a point in time where Battlefield 2 was the most influential game on ModDB if we go back, 12, 15 years, and it had some of the most incredible mods because you could create these 256 player, like these massive sort of scale engagements through it that no other game really could do. Um, and that Battlefield really hasn't had UGC back in it for a very long time, but now they're starting, like there is UGC sort of, back in Battlefield, and I suspect, they're looking at their other franchises in the same way. So I think for the players, like that should be really exciting. Like that these massive studios are acknowledging how important it is for their survival and opportunity and future growth, and I think it's going to deliver massively for them and for the community.
From the developer side, what's it like implementing mod IO, right? Are they overseeing everything? Are you just the framework? Like, my next question is going to go into kind of this gray zone. How do you prevent cheaters? How do you prevent bad content, right? But the question is, where does that responsibility sit, right? Is it on the studio itself?
Yeah, so I'll tackle this in two parts because one of them is just the implementation, which is sort of almost the development side, and then one is the operation, which is sort of the grey area that you were describing. So if we look at the first part, uh, integration, really the first step for a studio is, how do I make my game moddable? And that is, what sort of content do we want the playing community to be able to make? Are they making skins and emotes and liveries, like more sort of cosmetic and simple sort of content? Are they making levels and new worlds to explore? Or are we going to allow them to go to really deep and almost create total conversions and things which bring new gameplay and elements in? So the first thing for the studios to solve is that part of the equation. Um, Historically, we haven't really helped with that because it's a very personal game design decision. Like, what do you want your community to do? What do you want to see? That's game development work and gameplay work to make that all run and work easily. We do help a lot more now because one of the common traps that we see on engines like Unity and Unreal is studios will um, work, build in mod support in a way that doesn't work on consoles because consoles can't quite work in the same way as PC. You can't sideload content, you can't load DLLs, you can't run scripts, you can't overwrite and move files around. So you have to think a little bit more about your modding loading structure to ensure that you have that console compatibility, which is so important today. So we do help studios a little bit, but ultimately that's the first thing they need to solve. But once they've solved that, the actual mod.io side, like we're getting better and better and better at onboarding games, at plugins. Like we provide a plugin for Unity, Unreal, and custom engine titles. And those plugins now feature what we call a component UI, which is a very modular, unopinionated framework for changing the look and feel and the layout of how consumers will access content in game. So you can get a much higher quality, bespoke, very personalized version of Baldur up and running. And we always say to companies, you'll get that prototype running in anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. Like you will have that mod content distributing through your title in a very short time frame. It's the polish and the going through the console compliance and setting up all of the authentication systems where there's a bit more nitty gritty to kind of work through. But ultimately, like studios do get mod.io up and running with 1 to 2 engineers in anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months, and then there's a little bit of extra time depending on what you want to change and do differently.